AI is changing the game for creators and business owners, but here's the thing. Most people are using it wrong, or they're not using it to its potential. And in this episode of the Think Media Podcast, we're going to be talking about 7 AI prompts that really should be illegal. They're so powerful. The truth is, with the right prompt and the right distinction, you can save hours of work every week, unlock better content ideas, refine your business ideas. And I couldn't think of someone better to go through these 7 prompts, discuss each of our unique tactics than Marisa Murgatroyd. She's helped over 15,000 students create and launch their courses. They've generated over $50 million in online course sales. And she's one of the leading experts on how to combine strategy for your ideas with AI so that you can build a more profitable business. And so we're going to be looking at how to summarize big ideas and turn them into ready to shoot content, transform your frameworks, or even create the things you're teaching, the same things you're packaging into frameworks. Just absorbing this thinking is going to be so powerful. So Marisa, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me again. I cannot wait to help everyone save lots and lots and lots of hours of time and energy.
Yes. And I'm going to, at the top, let's just talk a little bit about the LLMs themselves, the actual tools. ChatGPT has the market share, the mind share, but there's so many great tools out there. I personally pay for a ChatGPT premium membership. I'm a Claude user. I use Google Gemini. Sometimes people say, why are you using one versus the other? I'm like, I don't know. It's just which one I opened up first and I jump between them. And they definitely have strengths and weaknesses. But what's your favorite?
Well, honestly, they change all the time. I've been using Claude to do a lot of deep kind of writing because you're able to create projects and upload a lot of different files. So if I'm doing long form courses and programs, being able to have it reference every single other training that I've ever created and every resource, then it can call back to past trainings. Because I find that when you have breadcrumbs that go through something, it's not like each one is its own thing, but you're able to create an entire ecosystem that's self-referential, that builds on itself. That's really powerful. So using projects in Claude is one of my favorites.
I love that. Yeah. And I use ChatGPT daily. I use Claude for a ton of YouTube titles, for writing, for scripting videos. Claude kind of has that reputation from being a strong writer, if you will, right? Copywriting and even powerful educational content, et cetera. But let's get straight into the prompts. So number 1, summarize long documents for fast video prep. Now, there's a lot of reasons you might want to summarize a long document. But if you're preparing, scripting, outlining a video or a piece of social media content, you might use a prompt like, I'm uploading this research study article or transcript. Can you summarize the top takeaways in a numbered list to explain them in plain language? How do you use this for content, but also in your business overall?
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of times when we're creating content, we are creating content from our experience, but we're also synthesizing a lot of material. And there's great research papers, there are great studies, there are great, free PDFs that you can download on the internet, but people love to watch things in video format. And video adds, basically, there's something called dual coding, if you've ever heard of it. So dual coding is that our brains process audio and visual in different channels, as well as reads in different channels. So when you're combining 3 channels, the brain gets it in multiple dimensions. So what I love to do is if you're using writing as a source content, whether it's your writing or somebody else's, the ability to kind of synthesize sometimes thousands of words into what are those core nuggets, takeaways, the points that you really want to learn, and just help someone bypass having to do all of that work themselves. Of course, if you are an expert, you have that added lens and that added filter. So the prompt you just shared is great. One of the ones that I love to add to that isn't just summarizing the top takeaways, but actually turning those takeaways into 3 actionable insights tailored for your specific audience. So, first you do the summary, but then you actually have it do another pass, which is turning it into the actionable insights that are tailored for your audience. You can also ask ChatGPT to summarize this for a particular platform. So if you want to create it for YouTube or LinkedIn or Instagram, you can also have them turn those insights into a short video script or convert it into a multi-slide carousel or presentation outline or turn it into an Instagram caption. So there's so many different ways once you have that source content to actually do multiple levels of prompts to create multi-channel content.
It's really good. And actually, to laser in on a distinction, this would mean if you're going to turn this long document, this PDF, into 3 actionable insights tailored for your specific audience, that you have fierce clarity about who your audience is. Because what's kind of cool about that is if you wanted to reach and educate other service providers or real estate agents, you might take a piece of financial information that's just out there on CNBC or wherever, but you'd say, and I want to create a valuable Instagram caption or Instagram carousel for real estate agents, but then you might take it deeper that are doing luxury or for female real estate agents. And I think that the greater specificity you have of who your audience is, then AIs can do a great job of doing the heavy lift to kind of contextualize that content. And then, yes, when you summarize for a specific platform, because I've been doing this lately, even when it's my own content, what's so cool is if I have something that's much longer, knowing that Instagram's caption is limited to 2,200 characters. So you can throw that at AI relatively simply and say, hey, can you just transform this thing that I've written into a caption that's less than 2,200 characters? To have to do that synthesis myself would be brutal, time consuming. But a lot of times I'm doing that with my own writing. And so knowing the character count, which is one Google search away, or you could probably ask the LLM itself and say, hey, really quick question for you. What's my character limit on this particular social media platform? Oh, it's this. Okay, great. Could you now transform this into something that will fit in that spot? Anything else you want to hit before the next prompt?
No, I think that's really great. Just being able to find what are the key nuggets, the key insights, and then turning it into a lot of usable formats. Because really what we do as creators is it's not necessarily generating brand new ideas and thoughts, but it's making ideas accessible, making it usable, making it entertaining, kind of bringing our spin to it. And this is a way to generate that content fast. And I actually think it ties really well into this other kind of AI prompt that we're going to be talking about next, because having those like key takeaways and having those actionable insights are great, but a lot of times they can go in one ear and out the other. People forget things that they hear, and even if they see them on camera. But if you're able to actually turn frameworks into visuals and infographics and use AI to do that, then you're kind of building on what you did previously and actually turning it into kind of really usable, hooky systems where the graphic itself translates the steps. So it feels more like a system and a process and not just some random, here's one thing to know and here's another thing to know. And I find a really good prompt for that is to say, I've got this framework methodology, maybe it's got a name, it includes these 3 steps or these 5 components. Can you turn this into a visual model that I can use in a video or presentation? And you can even link up ChatGPT with Canva. So the two work together and you get all sorts of incredible images and things with that.
This is awesome. So number 2 is turn frameworks into visuals and infographics. I want to break this down piece by piece. First, let's just get on the same page. What's your definition of a framework? What do you mean when someone's teaching something in a YouTube video, in a course? What is a framework?
A framework is essentially a repeatable system or process or technique. It's a way to drive a result. So a lot of times, when you have tipsicles and tip videos and all of that, it's like tip 1, tip 2, tip 3. They don't relate to each other. They're just disconnected tips. And you kind of remember one and you forget the others, but a framework is turning them into an integrated system. So for example, a lot of times you put a framework inside of a particular shape, like a linear chevron, right? And a linear chevron is just a series of arrows that fit one next to each other. That's like a progressive process. You could also put it into a circular chevron, where the steps, you could start at any step, they build on each other, they repeat, they continue. It's cyclical. You can put it into pyramids, into Venn diagrams, a lot of different ways to transform kind of ideas into information. And one of the most famous kind of examples of this is the Japanese Ikigai. So the Japanese Ikigai is a 1,000-year-old framework that says the reason why people in certain places in Japan live to be 100 is they found their Ikigai, which translates to a meaning for being. And that's at the intersection of what they love, what comes naturally and easily to them, what is going to make the world a better place, and what they can get paid for. Now, this kind of philosophy had been around for 1,000 years, but then this Spanish guy heard it and put it into a, Venn diagram, 4 overlapping circles. All of a sudden it went viral, went across the internet, went into like every country around the world. And this 1,000-year-old philosophy had a renaissance and a reemergence, and everyone was talking about it. Books got written about it. All sorts of stuff happened once it was put into the framework. Same thing happened with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the great psychological framework in the pyramid structure. So a lot of times, turning something into a shape, a visual, a framework takes information and adds a level of depth and meaning and relationship to it that makes it memorable and shareable.
It's beautiful. And, I think that this breaks down a couple really actionable insights for our listeners. And that is, first and foremost, if you want to stand out more on social media, especially in the education industry, if you want your ideas to spread, your ideas to be sticky, you want to increase your authority, you should be building frameworks. You should have your own proprietary process. And so it's even the idea that you could prompt AI if you have tips, you have some ideas, you even have your steps, but you haven't refined your ideas. You could ask AI to help you turn it into a framework or a methodology. I think secondly is then naming it. Like you said, Maslow's hierarchy of needs now has a name. Inside of Video Reiki Academy, we have it would be actually a circle, as you mentioned, that is a repeatable process. We call it our 7R framework for YouTube success. And so it is something that we continue to teach. We built our really company on it. And so you could start there. Assuming you have one or you develop one, then you could turn it into a visual. And just to clarify, you wouldn't be using Claude for this. I don't know that Claude does visual. So would you jump to ChatGPT and Canva? What would be your best tech setup to get a great result with this?
You can definitely, Canva has AI tools. I'm pretty sure that you can actually link ChatGPT and Canva so they're talking to each other. And, ChatGPT can come up with the ideas, and then Canva can do the implementation of the ideas. So that's definitely something that you can do right now. I know several of the graphic tools that lots of people use now have AI components, so it can create graphics for you. I think the Adobe suite now has AI, and it can, create graphics from instructions too. But Canva ChatGPT is probably the easiest combo.
Yeah, beautiful. So then you could suggest what is the best visual metaphor and play around with it. And then maybe draft a simple sketch that somebody else designs, but AI design is getting so great, you could have a final product. And now you just think about it, you have a talking head video. And instead of just kind of talking and expecting people to hang on just your words, you're showing and telling and giving a visual process that people could follow along with. So number one is summarize long documents into fast video prep. Number two is turn frameworks into visuals and infographics. Number three is generate show notes, descriptions, and chapters automatically. And so if you have any piece of content, this would definitely make sense for podcasts, YouTube videos, the ability to do show notes, the description of the content that could reinforce SEO. And on YouTube, you can do chapters by using Timecodes. You can have YouTube chapters. I got some insights on that in just a second. But Marisa, how have you been doing this?
Yeah, 100%. So you can upload a transcript of that video. And if you don't have a transcript, you can use AI to create a transcript as well. And then just instruct ChatGPT literally to say, I'm uploading a transcript of my latest video, my latest podcast. Please write show notes with the title, a summary paragraph, 3 key takeaways, timestamps, and a call to action. Of course, you can tell it what call to action to weave in. And you could say, please vary the call to action 3 times so I can make it in different ways, throughout. And then you can add your YouTube description. You can add your podcast show description, wherever you happen to be using it. You can also ask ChatGPT to turn it into an email to send to your audience, to also turn it into, say, a Facebook and an Instagram post. So you're able to then not just record the piece of content, but wrap around all the different kind of marketing that you need so people can extract the value from the content and so you can promote the content.
Yeah, that's so great. And one of the things that we've been actually using lately is we've switched to Riverside. We're recording this podcast in Riverside. And what's cool about these different tools is they're baking AI in. So you could pull the transcript from anywhere. But like what's amazing is right after we're done recording this, everything's transcribed instantly. And all these tools are baked in. And it's wild. It'll write like an SEO description. That's also what's interesting too, is you can tell the distinctions, the quality of it, the intelligence of it. Like it's well written, like it's like speaking, it's very readable. It's not just like kind of AI garbage. And then it'll give you the time codes and chapters right out of there. What are the sections? What are the different details? And then it's got all these baked in editing tools, and all of it synthesizes and works together. So power of, doing this from any piece of content and maybe piecing together some free tools as possible. But also over time, if you're creating content, it is, of course, that's one of the things we do at Think Media, but like investing in smart tools that help you go faster, that can kind of synthesize a lot of these different things. So again, we talk about Riverside in other videos, but if you do want to check that out, I'll link to that in the show notes. We've been loving it here at Think Media for recording our video podcasts. And the other thing that I wanted to hit on this one is what I've found is time codes and chapters. I have not found a tool yet, though, that can actually figure that out as far as getting the times right. I found that getting what it is and how it should be worded, and maybe how clickable or curiosity based it can be. It's like an art form to prompt AI to give you good chapters. But even if you upload the caption file from YouTube that has the time codes baked in, I think YouTube lets you export 3 different versions. Do you want like a TRT or like a CC, like whatever it is? None of them actually end up being accurate unless you do it manually. Now, I put that out to our audience. If you're on the YouTube version, maybe you found one that actually really dials in the time. So that's one of those things where you still got to do it manually. But what I have learned is that like wording them intelligently. And here's my favorite tweak to the prompt. Can you write chapters for this video that are SEO based and also curiosity based? Because YouTube is owned by Google, and the chapters of your video can show up ranking on Google in key moments, or just portions of your video can rank on Google if even a portion of your video answers a specific question or talks about something very specific. So by labeling it properly in an intentional, searchable way that also has almost a clickability to it, is so powerful. And so this is one of the things you could do with that. But there's a couple other things you could do too. You could then take the transcript of your video and repurpose it on social media. When you create content, is there anything you're doing like that?
Yeah, 100%. Every time I create a piece of source content like this, you can get so many different applications for that. So for example, you've got that, even taking each chapter and then asking, okay, we've got 5 chapters, we've got 10 chapters, draft a 150-word version formatted for an Instagram caption for each chapter, or let's turn it into a carousel. And you could also ask it to suggest, 5 keyword rich tags for each video, for example. And then you've got the hashtags and things as well. So you can increase the findability both on YouTube and on other platforms.
That's great. So that's number 3, which is generate show notes, descriptions, and chapters automatically. Number 4 is analyze social media and YouTube analytics for key patterns. So the prompt would be something like, here's my recent YouTube and social media analytics, and you could upload a CSV export, identify patterns, trends, and themes across my top performing content. That's the prompt. Now, if you go into your YouTube analytics, you want to go to advanced, and then you could change the settings to say, let's say the last year. So you go the last year, and what you visually can see, I want to say YouTube shows you 50 videos, but if you export it, it's 100 videos. So what you could essentially see is you could see your top performing 100 videos in whatever time range you want with an insane amount of data, exported into essentially an Excel spreadsheet that previously would be almost not useful for you, or would just take a day's worth of microanalysis, and then just drop that file into AI and use the prompt we just suggested. It'll then start recognizing and pulling out these trends and patterns that can help you double down on, maybe follow-up video ideas, insights. How are you doing this? And you're active on all kinds of social media platforms. What's kind of your workflow?
Yeah, 100%. Well, first of all, let me say that I used to pay someone on my marketing team over $200,000 a year because he was a quant, one of those analytical brains who could look at all the different data and then tell me. And I remember he did a YouTube channel analysis for me. And he discovered that when I asked people to subscribe, and then I did this glass shattering and effect on the screen, it had this bump in the view stats. Like people went back because this big thing happened. Kind of, I know our other video was about the dopamine button. It's like one of those things where I didn't just say hit the bell, like it went and shattered. And that caused people to go back and watch it again. And so we started doing this every single time that, I wanted to ask someone to subscribe. But that was like a $200,000 person. And so now, with all of our YouTube videos, being able to go and say, well, what are the things that we're doing that are causing spikes in viewerships? What are the things that are doing that are causing dips? Where are people leaving? And then, one of the things that we do now after the fact is not just analyze performance for future videos, but then to go and edit pieces out that are causing people to bounce on existing videos so we can increase performance and view time on the content that we've already recorded without having to even re-upload something. We kind of started doing this first when I made a mistake where my editing team, I was saying something that was supposed to be on the screen and they forgot to put it on the screen. And so we had to actually edit it out after the fact because it had already gotten, 1,000 or 2,000 views. And then we started doing that a lot. So using that to optimize existing videos in addition to finding the patterns for future videos, it's really about tapping into that Pareto principle. It's the 80-20 rule. They always say that 20% of what you're doing is getting 80% of the results, but it's so hard for humans to figure out what that 20% is. So we end up doing 100% all the time, which is exhausting and defeating, and it doesn't actually make a difference. So using YouTube or using chat to really analyze just massive amounts of data and information is really valuable, and to give you performance feedback too, based on the numbers, but also based on saying, okay, look at these 10 creators. Like if there are creators that you really admire too, and there might be some, like you don't necessarily want to be a Mr. Beast, but maybe you want to be a, Yes Theory, right? And you can kind of say, well, these are my favorite 10 creators. And how can I integrate some of the techniques that they're using in a way that's going to be resonant with what you know about my style? So there's a lot of different things that you can do as well, not just in terms of new content, but comparing against other top performing creators that you hand select and optimizing existing content.
Yeah, that's strong. And a couple other things I think that are powerful. Like, so assuming you have a thread going and you maybe start off, you're finding a way to export your data from a social media platform or screenshot things and you get that conversation going. You could say, explain why certain videos or posts underperformed. What are common threads among my weakest content? And then also consider that, like, if you upload that YouTube data, it's not going to see your thumbnails. But what you could do is you could screenshot, you could go to your YouTube channel, zoom out on your browser, take a screenshot of as many videos fit on there, maybe 20 or 24, and then say, any trends you notice upon my top performing videos and what's happening in the thumbnails, because AI can scan images. So thinking about what data you're giving it. And then this is kind of a gangster prompt. Consider this one. YouTube gives you an audience retention curve. So does Instagram. So the platforms give you this. You could upload your audience retention curve as a screenshot and upload your transcript and then say, what can I learn from any dips or why this is, going down, and how might I adjust my content in the future by combining those two pieces of data? Pretty wild, the fact that you can think about screenshotting images, combining it with transcripts or data, and then playing with that prompt in your feed. You might be like a little overwhelmed right now, and you also might be like really pumped because we're just geeking out on this stuff. But the big idea is analyze social media and YouTube analytics for key patterns, which brings us to number 5, deep research. Deep research is crazy. Different. I know Claude has had deep research. ChatGPT has deep research. They're all evolving in this. In fact, if you're listening to this specifically on the YouTube version where you can comment, what's your favorite LLM? Are you a Grok user? What AI are you using? Do you own a Tesla? Are you doing counseling and therapy in your Tesla as you're driving around right now? Let us know in the YouTube comments. But deep research, whether that's stats, sources, case studies. The base prompt could be, I'm creating a video about X, or creating a course module for my online course about Y. Find 3 credible studies, stats, or case studies to support this. Can you do deep research in the industry? Include links or short summaries. I've noticed that in ChatGPT, whenever you start deep research, it always follows up with 4 questions to get even more clarity around exactly what you want for that. How has this deep research been something you've been applying to content, but also to your business, Marisa?
Yeah, well, first, I actually want to say how I applied it personally because that sparked so many different ideas. So, my husband was recently diagnosed with osteoporosis, and he was able to put in all of his blood work, all of his like health analyses going back multiple years, and then throw it all into GPT deep research mode, and then have it flag potential things that could be going on that he could then bring to the doctors. So the reason why I say this is that, let's say you are delivering a course or a program, and you want to do an in-depth case study of existing students. And let's say they're working on something. It could be related to health. It could be relationship. It could be related to business. You could say, okay, I want everyone to record a fight with your partner, right? And they record it. I want to upload this fight with your partner and actually have it analyzed. Like, you could use deep research to analyze the patterns of where they might be going wrong in the relationship. But then if you're doing some kind of live call that you've done prep for, you could have the analysis ahead of time and then kind of lead people through as this big reveal live on the line. So there's so much way that you can use deep research to take kind of the real experiences people are having, especially where they might be going wrong. You know, for me in my business, I know a lot of people struggle with the chat, what I call chatterboxing and selling and outreach and trying to get customers, because they end up being kind of sleazy or pushy or just inauthentic. And then being able to say, well, what's the place where people get stuck in your community, whether it's your students or your clients? Have them send you like some kind of export, run the deep research on it, give them an analysis, and kind of provide the solution. And that feels really kind of miraculous right now. Of course, deep research also helps get really interesting things. So if you're writing a webinar or you're writing a training, and I did this recently with the certification program, I would need to give very specific examples at different points in the customer journey, and where, say, they had a disastrous mobile experience, then created a good mobile experience. So using deep research to kind of find those examples that are what make a concept come to life. So that's where I like to use it a lot. So you can say something like, find recent industry reports or data within the last 2 years, locate 2 to 3 relevant business case studies from recognizable brands, or find real stories or real world examples that illustrate this point. All of those kind of prompts and sub prompts will allow you to get some really kind of awesome stuff that just brings your content to life. Because it's one thing to talk theoretically, and it's another thing to ground it. So there's actually, I learned from Brendan Burchard years ago that there are 4 levels of kind of content delivery and teaching and transformation. The first level is the theoretical level. That's where it's just like the sort of why. All right, this is what you can do. Then there's the tactical level, which is the how-to. The how-to is more valuable, and YouTube is full of how-to. However, it's a little bit commoditized because 5 people could give the same how-to on how to use deep research. Am I right? But the next level is the transformational level, where you actually apply the theory and the tactics to what people want to achieve in their own life. So you could say, okay, my audience is this. They really want 6-pack abs, but not for the reason that you think. You see, they're actually computer programmers and geeks who've struggled to attract women, their whole life. And they want the abs not to be able to show off, but just to feel more confident to approach that, girl next door. Right? So you can actually say, find some examples of famous nerds that got fit and it transformed their whole relationship. Now, all of a sudden, you're using it to find transformational stories that are resonant to your audience. And the final level is the transcendental level. And that's where you connect the theory and the tactics, not just to what someone wants in their own life, but for what someone wants in the world, that larger change, that larger mission, that ability to make an impact. So you can find those transcendental stories as well, where, hey, ChatGPT, I want to show that when you take care of your own body and you get fit for yourself, what's the net positive for the world? Can you find some examples that are surprising and heartwarming that will allow my audience to get that at a whole different level? And so I find that being able to do the deep research, to find those case studies and stats and sources that add value by kind of adding depth is really a game changer.
Man, I actually have a few more things. That's so powerful, is all the different insights you're sharing there. And I want to share a few more things on deep research, and then we have two entire more prompt categories to cover. But I wanted to bring up, especially because we talked about this in a previous episode, and I think it fits really well here. You have a really great resource at thinkbrainhacks.com called the dopamine button. And as we're going through these AI prompts, everything you're saying is so relevant that we could do deep research, get specific case studies, information, even stories. But everyone has access to these same AI tools. That's good, but also bad, because a lot of people are going to just be regurgitating AI information. But the difference between those who succeed on social media and in building products and those who stay stuck is actually being able to tap into the actual delivery or the actual triggering of human psychology that creates an experience and an interaction with the content that makes you different than all of the noise on the internet. Now, that was number one. I'll link in the show notes to a previous episode where we talked specifically about the dopamine button. So you can save that for later, Think Media Podcast, or listen to that next. But you do have a free resource. And if people go to thinkbrainhacks.com, they can get it. But just explain a little bit about, yes, we have all these AI information, but what matters most if we're actually going to have results online by tapping into the dopamine button?
Yeah, 100%. So information is a dime a dozen, but it's how you get people to leverage that information, to implement it, to use it to transform their lives. So you might tell the inspiring story, but if there is no takeaway, or there is no next step, or the takeaway or next step is too big and too broad and too overwhelming that people feel paralyzed before they take it, then they're not going to get into action, especially if you want to inspire sustained or prolonged action, which is usually what's required to get a real result in their lives. So if you're selling any kind of program, any kind of service, any kind of offering that helps people get the result, then these are ways to go beyond the delivery of information and create real implementation roadmaps that overcome a lot of the key challenge points and hurdles that people face where they decelerate, by working with the way the brain likes to learn and how we feel rewarded.
Yeah, I love that. So this is a super valuable resource called the Dopamine Button, 3 brain hacks that skyrocket your engagement. If you're interested in that, it'll be in the show notes, or go to thinkbrainhacks.com. Now, before we go on to 6 and 7, I love how you talked about using deep research, whether uploading a transcript of a fight between a couple, or even from like a story-driven side. Of course, more practically, if you just want raw industry data, one of the things that I've found, you mentioned you paid a quant expert over $200,000 in the previous point. What's wild is you start thinking about what it would cost to hire a researcher, or hire someone to do research, or have someone full time. And the fact that AI has disrupted that in a major way. I wanted recently to teach on and learn from a case study of the brand HubSpot. And so HubSpot's a big CRM. And one of the things they did, though, is they moved into media, and they made a big pivot a few years ago where they actually purchased The Hustle, which I believe was a newsletter and a video podcast. They then started a creator program. They started kind of an influencer program. They launched some of their own shows. And I was just curious, what was like the scope and span of all that in preparation actually to do a talk in Miami at the YPO Global Marketing Summit. And so by prompting it, I was like, okay, so what's like the whole history of HubSpot? What are some of the things they did in the early years? How do they launch into media? Can you find articles, podcast interviews, anything they've published, anything in everywhere on the entire internet? And deep research, it'll pull in 50, 100, 150, 200 sources. Like there's no way, how long would it take you to read all of that? And if you were paying a researcher, and so then it's going through all of that and it's pulling out the Times quotes from their CMO, it's pulling out all this information and then making a multi-page case study about how HubSpot made this major launch into media. And even if we were to go to an earlier prompt, once you have that, of course, you could stay in the same thread or you could export it as a PDF, even to just upload it as an asset to then potentially say, what are 3 simple tips for beginners in social media from HubSpot? Or what are 10 tactical insights for large brands from HubSpot? So the progression of being able to do something with that depth and that nuance and the fact that it's at your fingertips, but of course, the thinking behind it, the strategy behind it is important as well. Before we hit 6, anything else?
Yeah. So one of the things I love about that story, like you were saying, what creators can leverage. One of the kind of all-time, highest performing marketing formulas is what course creators can learn from Bruce Lee, or what beginner YouTube channels with less than 100 fans can learn from Mr. Beast, or whatever else it happens to be. Like you can actually take these big giants, but then contrast it for someone just starting their journey, or using different industries or different fields or different niches or countries or just hot trending topics or shows or pop culture phenomenon. And deep research is a great way to do that.
That's the formula. What specific audience can learn from famous example? Steal that, Think Media podcast. And you might end up, it only takes 20 minutes or 30 minutes, which is, the other thing I was thinking, that's so funny this morning, maybe because of how many users are on there. I know there's all kinds of concerns, how much energy, how much water, and all this different stuff. I was just thinking, Marisa, though, how terrible we are as humans that we get something like AI and it's radically changed our life. What used to take a day or a week takes 30 minutes. But I started putting in some prompts this morning and it was just going slow. And I'm sitting there and I just started to think of my own emotions. I was outraged. I was like, how could ChatGPT be so slow right now? And then I had to reframe it and I was like, go back 5 years. And I couldn't even gotten done, 1/10 of what I'm about to get done so quickly yet. And I think there's psychology behind that. It's that we always raise the standard. It's that I heard a comedian once say that when somebody got on a plane and there was Wi-Fi and it worked for the first 10 minutes and then it stopped working. And then this person next to him was like, what is this? How, just lost his flipping mind. But it was like, you're in the sky in a chair on the internet. And, go back 100 years, just frame this up. You're going to be okay if you don't have access to the internet. But we just get so used and accustomed to these tools. It's just funny. And how fast things are going now. And sometimes how entitled we might feel to that speed, even if it slows down for a microsecond.
I love that. And speaking of, which LLM to kind of go for, it's like if you want the one that's a little less censored and will kind of tell you the real deal and not just the sort of sanitized version, like the non-PC one, the one that tells you what it shouldn't, that's Grok, because it's based off of Elon, and Elon's willing to be like, just whatever. So yes. You want the LLM that will just like tell it like it is, that's Grok.
Awesome. Okay, so a couple more to go. Number 6, competitor analysis for content and strategy. So a base prompt here could be, here's a competitor YouTube channel or website or funnel. Analyze their content strategy, business model, branding, break down strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. Now, this is wild, friends. Number 1, high-level business owners, they study their TAM. What's the total addressable market? They do a competitor analysis. They do, high-level PE firms. And this is kind of part of the process. Now, 0% of content creators and even most online business owners do this. And one reason you also usually don't do it is because it's so hard. The time it would take, the energy it would take. You're just trying to get your product off the ground, your content off the ground. But you could combine this with deep research previously to think about what's now at your fingertips to do a competitor analysis. And by uploading their website, even their funnels. It doesn't have to be as simple as just analyzing their YouTube channel. You can try to unpack what is their strategy, what is their brand, what is their market positioning, what are their strengths, weaknesses. And another great framework, speaking of frameworks, is doing a SWOT analysis. And what are my, as my business, strengths, weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. And if you do that in the context of the greater market, these are just fundamentals that can help you develop your strategy for the future. So there's so many different angles we could hit this. I'm curious your insights of how you might do this when it comes to competitor analysis.
100%. So everything that you said is spot on. They always say that success leaves clues. And I think we oftentimes feel like we have to reinvent the wheel. We're a creator, so we need to create. And I think that there are some things that you want to apply your creativity to, and some things that it's better to leave to proven models. And I like to say, sometimes I have people who come into my programs and say, and I love this. So like, I'm going to pray. I'm going to kind of find the answers. And I think there are definitely things in life that you want to pray about, but like proven business models isn't always the thing. That's where you want to really reinforce it with just verifiable. What I really like to look for is market gaps. Because the industry is so saturated, being able to say, okay, these are the top 3 people, 5 people with comparable services or products that are bigger than me, but what are all of them missing? And if you search for, blue ocean strategy, they have a business model canvas specifically. And you can say, please plot the strategy of each of these 5 competitors on a blue ocean strategy business model canvas, and help me see what the market gaps are between all 5 of them, and what I might want to increase or decrease emphasis on to stand out and compete against these top 5 partners or top 5 competitors.
What's wild is I actually did that exact thing once. At blueoceanstrategy.com/tools, they give all of their frameworks, which is crazy how many there are, because there is 12, 16. So, I mean, they have their strategy canvas, value innovation, red ocean versus blue ocean strategy. And what's so wild, though, is, we're living in a world where when you can connect these different ideas, you could then start with a framework, a template, a lens like that, and then plug in your competitors and then start carving out different insights. And your insight about searching for gaps is huge. And I want to encourage listeners too. It's like, I think everyone's feeling right now, man, it just feels like there's more competition and there's more saturation. And you'd be right. But, at every season of business, that's true. And in every season of business, there's going to be winners and losers. Those who just stay cynical, complain, or get overwhelmed, you're going to stay stuck. But if you take a breath, strategize, do the work that others aren't willing to do, and also lean into a level of strategy that's at the level of depth of even this conversation, there are always gaps. There are always opportunities. Richard Branson said opportunities are like buses. There's new opportunities coming every single day. And even in a micro niche, even like YouTube, well, man, my niche feels really competitive. Yeah, pivot then. Skate to where the puck is going, not where it is. And so I love this one as far as competitor analysis. There's a whole list we wrote of ways of going deeper, but for time's sake, let's move on to number 7. And then I also want, after that, to get a little bit of your insights in terms specifically for those that are wanting to package what they know into online courses, or in what you call them as experience products, and some of the future of making money online after number 7 for those that want to stick around. But number 7 is brainstorm titles, names, taglines, and URLs that stick. Here's a base prompt. I'm creating a series, or I'm creating a video, or I'm creating a course, or I'm creating a product. Give me 10 name ideas with a confident, modern tone, and also suggest 10 short, easy to spell URL options, if you wanted to buy a website. What are your thoughts on this prompt?
Oh, I think it's amazing, because naming is one of the most important things, but it's also one of the most hardest things to do. I might give it a little bit more criteria as well. There are different kinds of naming conventions. So, for example, when it comes to videos, the whole how-to is a really good format. So is what I call big promise positioning. And there are lots of different formulas, like how to do X in Y time, do X without Y, like how to fix your back without doctors, drugs, or surgery. You can actually go beyond and say, before doing this prompt, say, do a search for, okay, I'm naming videos for YouTube. What are the top 50 all-time best YouTube title templates, right? Then take the templates, feed it in and say, all right, now here are the top 50 YouTube templates of all time, and I'm creating a course about X, Y, or Z. Use these templates to give me 10 name ideas with a confident modern tone that match my brand. You could also say, please do not make them sleazy, slimy, or use words such as cheating, whatever it is. So if there's certain things you want to avoid, you can also say that. Also suggest the 10 easy to spell URLs. So you can take that base prompt and you can customize it and have it think with a greater level of accuracy and expertise.
Yeah, that's great. And I listed a lot of things in this headline because, okay, so you're brainstorming YouTube titles. I love the idea that you're taking like even big data, best performing YouTube titles, and maybe even applying that to how you would name an online course or name a product. Of course, naming could apply to even your very brand name. Some listeners are still trying to figure out the name of their channel or the name of their business or the name of a specific product in their business. Taglines, then crafting, what's your elevator pitch or a tagline for your brand that's clever, that's unique. And then URLs. We're a big fan of URLs at Think Media. It's not maybe for everybody. Some people, when they're building things out, they'll do their website / start / free or whatever. But it's kind of cool we found to buy URLs. We did an event called YouTube Jumpstart. So we purchased tubejumpstart.com. But in some cases, and then we just redirected to that. And that has been helpful. But what we found that AI can be really helpful to kind of help us quickly brainstorm. So we're not just looking at a blank GoDaddy search and like, well, what do we search? And, trying to figure out, AI can really help you, especially with the better data. And I like that you said, match my brand, a conversation for another time. But the amount of brand clarity you have is very helpful because then it can kind of help you stay on brand as you are moving through all of these pieces. Well, I want to cover, kind of one final question. And, at the time of recording this, you also have some valuable free resources for individuals specifically that want to either start or create a digital product. You call it an experience product from scratch, or maybe they already have a product they've created. They want to improve it. They're trying to generate sales. Specifically, what are some of the things you're doing right now? And what is the opportunity going forward? We've got all these AI prompts, but what's also some of the challenges? I know you've created your own AI tool for AI for course creators or people that want to get in this industry. And is there even any opportunity more when everybody could just go to AI and ask it questions and get information?
Yeah. So what AI can't necessarily do is hold you accountable to a result and adapt with you as you try, as you fail. Yes, you can keep querying AI to say, oh, I hit this challenge. What would you do here? But the truth is if you don't have if I were just trying to do something like create an online course from scratch and use AI to guide me every step of the way, AI can send you down rabbit holes. It can give you incorrect information. It's querying all of human knowledge. So that includes good and bad knowledge. Does that make sense? It includes good advice. It includes bad advice. So AI is going to give you everything. So I think there's still a huge market for being able to get people results or help people solve a problem that's more complex, that requires a little bit of extra support. I think a lot of the low end of the market is going to drop off, like helping people learn how to do really simple things. I think I gave the example in the last video about sourdough bread. If you can now look up how do you bake sourdough bread on YouTube, get free stuff, and then you're also asking ChatGPT to go look at the best recipes and give you advice, that doesn't really require kind of as much support. But I had a student, Shirley Quamby, who had gone to Le Cordon Bleu in Paris to learn baking skills. And she was helping people basically non-professional bakers learn professional level skills. So people who really wanted to take the hobby to the next level. Now that goes beyond sourdough bread. This is like learning how to do all those fancy Frenchy stuff. You know what I mean? That takes finesse and challenge, and you're going to mess it up. The thing is going to be like not all poofy. It's going to be flat, whatever it happens to be. So that's an example where learning those techniques and actually mastering them and implementing them takes time and patience and mastery and some failed attempts, if that makes sense. So something that's a little bit more robust, that requires nuance, that requires finesse, that has some level of sophistication, that there are multiple pathways and multiple places where you could go wrong and kind of fail. And also something where either there's a high degree of irrational passion around it, or it's a really bleeding neck problem, or like an outcome people want. So, for example, anything in sports niches or pet niches tend to be irrationally passionate, right? So whether it's golf or it's tennis or it's dog training or any of the stuff like that, your rescue animals, those do really, really well because people have a heightened degree of passion. Then there are the problems that are really gnarly, something health related, something relationship related, like your child is struggling, all of those kinds of gnarly problems that your life kind of goes on pause until you have a solution. And they're not easy, even if you get advice from ChatGPT, like getting to a solution or a good place. It's not an easy thing. Like one of my top performing creators does high conflict divorce, right? And that's a challenging problem. Like people have to navigate lawyers, they have to navigate finance, schooling, housing. Like there's so many elements, and it's technical and it's challenging, and there's heightened emotions at the same time. Those are all going to kind of lead. Another one of my students who's doing really well is people with sex addictions or had problems related to that. So these are all complex things that I don't know if AI is going to solve them for you, right? So, and then there are ones where people want to like achieve a heightened state or level of performance, beyond what would normally be accessible. This is why Joe Dispenza is just, everyone wants to learn and go to a Joe Dispenza event right now, because what he's helping people do in meditative states is the level beyond. See, all of those categories, the irrational passion, the gnarly bleeding neck problem that's challenging and multi-layered, and these sort of heightened states or outcomes that normal people can't get in normal situations and require a significant amount of training or diligence to get. These are all areas that will continue to have people investing at high levels, and not just investing, wanting to follow through on the outcome. This is also the reason why some of the trends have been fading. I know, for example, that LinkedIn bought lynda.com for like, I don't know, $1 billion or something, however many years back. That acquisition would not have happened today. Because if people want to learn tech skills, first of all, they might not have to anymore because they can just get AI to do it for them. Second, they're going to want to get the most up-to-date information pulled across the web from AI who can do a tutorial. Like that kind of training, that can be quickly and easily replaced. Also, masterclass.com is a famous training company that uses Steven Spielberg and all of these Thomas Keller and food, all of these famous people to train. Now on the one hand, it's access, and people still do pay for access. So if you have a following, people will pay to learn from you. However, access from like 100 people who you don't necessarily care about all of them at the same level, and they're not teaching in a way, you don't get access to them. You get access to their knowledge and expertise in a static kind of library context. People lose interest in that, even if it's a famous person, because it's not doable for them. It's not applicable. If I'm learning, French cooking from Thomas Keller, the Michelin star chef, I can't replicate that in my kitchen. You know what I mean? Just from him giving an interview or something. That company went through massive rounds of layoffs 3 years in a row because of that. So looking at what are the things that people will continue to pay for that can't be replaced by AI? What are the things that can be? And also very specialized knowledge too. For example, investing knowledge, where it's changing all the time based on the market conditions, or like people who do like mergers and acquisitions or deal flow. It's required, like people need special access and relationships, and it's changing, or high regulatory industries where you have to be compliant. Those sorts of things will always do well because it's changing, or like I said, it requires the access or whatever else it happens to be. So knowing how to choose the right idea and the right niche today that still has a high level of value and applicability. It's got the passion. People are willing to spend the money. They're also going to have the desire to follow through, and it can't be replaced by AI yet.
That was a mini masterclass, and a couple things. I know you've got a resource, and if you're listening to this, maybe two categories I think this is relevant for. One, in a previous episode, we were talking about how the e-learning industry, this online course industry, digital products industry is still $1 billion a day, and it's growing. So for anyone, sometimes it's thrown around like online courses are dead. I understand what people mean by that. It's not true. It's like, well, if you call $1 billion a day dead, but there's been massive changes. So if it's an industry that you've wanted to get in, maybe you're already in it and you've realized there are changes you need to pivot, then you've got a resource. I want you to tell me exactly what it is, but at smartcourseideas.com, and we'll link this up in the show notes, people can get access to, I think, a 5-day challenge, right?
Yes. So I do a 5-day challenge called Crack Your Course Idea with AI, or crack your profitable course idea with AI. And it's basically, I've included 3 custom AI tools that I hand built and coded to support you in finding that profitable idea. Each day I drop like a 5 to 10 minute training with a quick exercise. And this is the distillation of 15 years in the industry, helping, I've personally trained over 7,300 people who've and helped them launch their courses. So the distillation, based on all the failed launches and all the profitable launches and the people who won and succeeded, is how do you get to that idea that is just going to work, that's sellable, that people are going to want to buy, but also it's something that aligns with you. You're not just finding a niche and serving it. It's something that feels in deep alignment. So you have the passion for it and the drive to see it through.
I think then that sounds like really 3 groups, at least in my mind. There might be more, but it's like, one, if you've always wanted to package what you know into an online course, package transformation for others in an online course, then I love the fact it's only 5 to 10 minutes a day. We should do something faster for our thing. Like we do our YouTube Jumpstart. It's only 2 hours a day. Like it's hard for me to land the plane. I love the fact that 5 to 10 minutes a day, free AI tools. You're driving people to a result. So if you've ever wanted to start or launch a digital product, if you want to launch your next digital product, I know that for a lot of us, you've been in the industry 15 years. Sometimes your biggest learnings is you did something, you got it launched, it used to work, or it worked in a previous era, to your point, like lynda.com. Maybe you did some kind of a coding thing in the past, but you notice things are changing. Well, fresh inspiration, I think, could come from this. And then if you also just want improvement, you want to actually, or bring a level of total opportunity and change, not just making tweaks to what it is you're doing, but going to another level. All that to say, totally free, totally optional. If you want to check it out, smartcourseideas.com. Link in the show notes to get access to that free 5-day crack your profitable course idea with AI. I have one final question for you, but if anybody wants to connect with you, social media, follow you, you've added a ton of value today. Let me know where people can connect with you.
Basically /live your message. So youtube.com/live your message, Instagram /live your message, Facebook /live your message, everywhere /live your message. And liveyourmessage.com too.
I love that. Thank you for adding so much value today. And just kind of final question. Can you speak to the overwhelmed, which would be 100% of us, right, that are listening right now? In today's environment, you've been in business 15 years. What have you found that when it comes to like finishing a podcast like this, shout out to people who made it this far, as far as like really just putting one foot in front of the other and getting out of overwhelm and getting into action, what has helped you over the years when there's a million things to do in your business while life is coming at you from every side? What have you found that is helpful to just get some momentum and get moving?
Yeah. So I really believe in reverse engineering from what it is that you actually want. Because a lot of times people say, Marisa, I want to be you. I want to have this multi-million dollar business. I'm like, well, do you want to do what I do every day? And the answer is no. And so one of the things I love to do is help people build a right size, right fit, right speed business for them. And just because someone else has these 2 billion followers or whatever doesn't mean that that's what you want or what you need. And you might not want to do the work to get there. And so, for me, it's reverse engineering from what you want and then following clear stages of business growth. What I mean by that is you can look at someone like Sean, you can look at someone like me, and you can try to replicate what we're doing, but you're starting in different conditions at a different time, with, say, different reach, with different skills. So I like to lay out clear kind of stages of growth, whether it's for launching a course or whether it's for launching a business, that based on where you're at, if you're starting at zero, these are the things to do. So keep it simple, keep your product simple, keep your marketing simple, keep your tech stack simple. And then once you have about like this level of success or outcomes, then you can start doing these things. Once you get to this level, you can start doing these things. The vast majority of the industry is teaching what I call authority marketing and authority tactics, one funnel away from heartache, you know? And that sends a lot of people buying really expensive tools and doing really sophisticated campaigns when they haven't even validated their niche. So I always like to say, focus on minimum viable launch, which is minimum viable product plus minimum viable technology and minimum viable marketing. That will help you prove the idea fast. Once you prove the idea, you can double down. But if you take it one step at a time, you eat the elephant one bite at a time, you can get there. But it does require not scaling back your ultimate vision, but having a realistic ascension plan from where you are to where you want to go. Because the only way to get where you are is based on where you want to go is based on where you are right now. And a lot of people bypass their starting point for the dream. You can still have the dream, but a lot of times the first steps to the dream are a lot less whiz bang flash than what you think they are. And they're also a lot less sexy. But if you can just do what you need to do in those early stages, that's going to get you so much farther faster than jumping into, build the whole whiz bang Ferrari Lamborghini funnel.
Man, such a great answer to the question. And thank you for adding so much value today. Think Media Podcast. If you got value, it always means the world if you like, rate, share, review wherever you watch or listen. My name is Sean Cannell, your guide to building a profitable YouTube channel, and I cannot wait to connect with you in a future episode.